Hey all, this is Adam Perry from TrueDFS, and I am going to go over tonight's 8-game NHL DFS slate using SaberSim and the TrueDFS team's projections. So that's Goldie's projections or Sheets projections to build some lineups and get an idea of what the best strategies are on tonight's slate. But really, it's a process video. So I want to go over how I would do it for any slate. Although tonight is particularly interesting because it's a slow night for the NBA. The NFL is over, and so DraftKings has put a little bit more into the NHL DFS contests. So we've got $100,000 to first place for the $360 MME tournament of NHL DFS, which is really exciting to see. Hopefully we'll get these now, especially on Tuesdays when there's less going on going forward. And as someone who plays usually in the 222 or the 444, it's nice to get a souped up tournament. DraftKings has been running satellites to it, so it filled almost by early morning. So looking forward to building a lineup for that contest. So before I get started building with what we have now, I just want to point out two things news-wise that you want to look for as the slate approaches. So if I just sort by value, the first thing I want to point out is the second best value play in SaberSim. And if we look at like Goldie's stuff and sort by point per dollar, we don't quite get it there. Let's see how Sheets has it. We don't get the Blake, but here you have Blake coming up as a pretty good value. He's likely to come up in some of your lineups. Do keep in mind that Roslovic, the normal winger on EV1 and Power Play 2 for Carolina, is a game time decision. So there's some possibility that Roslovic becomes Blake and he's $500 more. He's at 4K. So SaberSim has him projected out now. I think everyone probably does. I think there is some possibility that he plays, and that's really going to change around how the values look heading into the slate. So, you may want to be ready to move down from Blake to Dodonov, or to Sharangovich, or if you have the salary to move up to Roslovic, especially if you're playing Carolina stacks. So that's something we want to keep in mind, whether we're building by hand or doing as we do here, building by SaberSim. The other thing, so one of the betting podcasts that I listened to mentioned that Scott Mayfield might even be a game time decision and that he had an illness yesterday. Roslovic's out with an illness. It's been going around the NHL. And so if Mayfield's out, that would really throw off some of the top values that we have in SaberSim stuff. I don't think, like, if I look at daily face-off, they've got Mayfield projected in. Let's see. Yeah, he's on the top D pairing for the Islanders. It seems like everyone is projecting that in, but I did hear that from some sources I tend to trust. So it's something I'm going to look out for. The game locks at 6:30, so it's a little bit after the first set of games lock. So it's something just to keep an eye on if you end up with that Mayfield value. As I said, he's showing up as the top value in SaberSim, at least for right now. So let's keep an eye on that. One thing Sheets likes to do in his content, I think, is an interesting way to go about things to see where we would get if we hand built. Just looking at Sheets's value score and his equation for ranking guys, you get a whole lot of Tampa at the top, at least relative to the other teams on this 8-game slate. Now, Tampa's usually expensive. One of them is the goalie. Tampa's usually pretty expensive because they're a great team, but their power play has been mixed up a little bit. So Hedman, who's a high-priced D guy, is not on power play 1, and Radish is, which gives you a little bit of value. And then I think they have Michael Chaffee. Is that his name? Let's see, Chaffee. Mitchell Chaffee on power play 1. So he's not a great value because he's not going to get a lot of ice time on the 4th line. But when he does hit, he gets some power play 1 time alongside of Kucherov and alongside of Radish and Gunsel. So some of the top guys on the slate. If you look in SaberSim, I mean, Tampa's got a 4.4 total. I don't think it's really that high if we were going to look at the betting markets, but it's way higher than any other team on this slate. So Tampa is going to project well, and the price kind of works. I was playing around with this before I came on. And if I just went, like if I wanted the Tampa power play 1, it's expensive at first, but then you throw in a $2,500 Chafee and Radish, and you could fit it. And you got $4,600 a man. I mean, even if you wanted to play a high-priced goalie, it's doable. If you wanted to correlate the goalie and play the high price, I mean, so there's a lot you could do tonight to get in some pretty high-powered stacks. It'll be interesting to see what SaberSim gives us because, of course, I mean, the ownership's going to reflect that. And because there's a lot of satellites to this contest and it filled pretty early, it's tough to know what to expect. It's not the normal field that we're used to playing against. This is a field that probably has some more hand builders, probably has some guys just going off projections. So it may be that these ownership numbers for the flagship do a little bit better of a job projecting for the one I'm going to build for that has $100,000 up top and 900 people. So I'm going to go ahead and just start building lineups. I'm just going to use SaberSim today. We've experimented different ways. I think it's a great way to do it. Remember, if you sign up for TrueDFS, there's that trial at the bottom of my screen for $10.99, and you'll get Sheets' projections, you'll get Goldie's projections, and you'll get all the analysis in Discord and access to premium videos and a lot of other good content. And we did that experiment a couple times where we plug in a different set of projections, and even running sims against SaberSim's ownership, you get pretty different kind of lineups and different results. So it's really good to have more sharper projections to have access to that. So let's just use SaberSim though for today. One of the reasons I do like doing this is that those are going to update right before lock, and when we have some news we're waiting on, we could get really last minute changes with Mayfield, and with the Blake one could especially affect the lineups we create, and that's going to not really come out till about 5:45, about 15 minutes before lock. So it's the type of slate where I'd like to use SaberSim to get in those last minute kind of changes. So I'm going to be building for, I think it's called the Spinorama, and I'm going to want to run a simulation against this contest. So I'm going to set up the contest sim. And then I want to run it against the ownership projections for high stake MME. So I want my lineups that I'm going to build, and I'm going to try and build 5,000. I want them to be built with the idea in mind that the ownership is going to be the high stakes MME. Now, one thing that's tough about this is there's about 960 people in the contest, and it's right on the cusp of these two different sliders. So if you look at like the SaberSim 1,000 to 10,000 man sliders, it pumps the correlation up to 5 and the sim variance up to 8. And if you're 150 max, it's also right on the cusp. You know, it's more than a 20 max contest because there's a 28 max entry. And if we went to the 1,000, it would only have the sim variance as 8. I like the idea of getting more variation in our sims and access to more teams and more variant combos. So I'm going to pump that up to 9, and we're going to keep the correlation at the 4. And one of the reasons I'm not worried about increasing that correlation is I'm only going to have the builder make me lineups that are highly correlated to begin with. I don't love the low correlated lineups in hockey. So those are your 4-2s, your 4 and 4 1-offs, 4 2-2s, and all the way down. I think there's a case, especially in a larger field contest than we usually do, to build with these 4-2s and 4-3s. But the field's going to be in on that. Those are the most played combos, and I still love to get as much correlation as possible, even in a bit of a larger contest than we normally build for. So I am just going to do my usual thing where I tell the builder to make me 5-man stacks, 5-2s, 6-mans, all the onslaughts. Correlation is king, and I want to capture as much upside as I can. I am not really worried about any kind of middling outcomes, any 80th percentile outcomes. I don't care. I want those high leverage outlier outcomes, and I believe you get those best in onslaught stacks, especially when the price is right for the members of those stacks. So let's go ahead and build. The nice thing is it looks like we got some projections updated right before we did this, and the ownership updated. So that is a good thing. We are up to date in SaberSim. While it's building, we could take a look, see if any news came in. NHL Game Day News is a good site for information. Sad's not on tonight, Slate, but he is getting sent down. It's funny because there was so much. He was such a good value 2 weeks ago, skating on EV1 for St. Louis at a really low price. And now it looks like he's gone. Progress on Kevin Ball. He is not projected in. He is not going to play. Lofton is not on tonight's slate. Here's the Roslovic news I was talking about. I didn't see this Mayfield reported. It was just something I heard, so I want to keep an eye on it. Carlo's probably a punt D-man that could work. If you see him in your lineups, know that he is a game-time decision. So another player to be careful about, although I don't expect we'll see too much Brandon Carlo. So we're already at 2,000 lineups. Well, sometimes when we put constraints on the builder, telling it to make us only onslaught stacks, it just goes a lot slower, right? Because it's searching for those lineups. And sometimes because of that, it'll stop before the 5K, but that's okay. I am much happier getting 3, 4, or 5,000 of the stacks I'm going to play than 1,500 of the stacks I might play in my pool to run sims on and see how they do, and then 1,500 that I'm going to trash afterwards anyway. So we'll let it keep going. These Calgary's come up, neither of them come up as good a value as the other guys, but they're correlated pretty well with Sharon Govich and Coronado, both on power play 1. So that'll be interesting to see if we get to them. SaberSim's projecting the ownership to be pretty high. So here we go. These are lineups going to give us about 4,000. Let's see if we used their sorting metric. SaberScore tends to prefer projection a lot more than the simulations do. So our top 10, we would get some 5s, some 5-2s, and a lot of Islanders. So you get the Islanders value. You get those Tampas like we talked about. And that suggests to me that as we expect, Tampa's going to be pretty high owned. If you play the Islanders value, you get a pretty decent team total at 2.8, and then you could jam in the higher price guys like a Pasternak correlated with Zacha. Dostal's interesting. He's a really good goalie. Usually Anaheim are such big underdogs, but playing against Seattle, you get a close to a 50-50 game with a pretty strong goalie in it. Here's an interesting one. You're getting Alexiak versus Dusto, which is surprising to see. Let's see if we run simulations where we'll get. So let's sort by the simulated ROI as we do. And these are going to give us the top graded lineups against how we think the field is going to play in a $360 100K to first spinorama. And if we were to look at for our top lineup, it is Washington. Good team going against Calgary. You get to play Igor with them, a good goalie in a tough matchup, but nevertheless a good goalie. And you got plenty of money to play Kucherov. And then the punt center and Poitras. Although he's a punt, I mean, he's still getting some power play time and decent even strength time. And you get the Washington power play. One of the things I like about Ovechkin is that while he's projected as power play 1, he tends to skate the full power play minutes with the power play 2 guys. So he has even more upside than others. And let's see, you get some 6 stacks of Carolina is pretty interesting. As we mentioned, though, we've got to look out for that Roslovic news. So that's something to think about. If we ran these before lock, if Roslovic was in, would we be getting the same kind of exposure to Carolina that the Sims are suggesting? Now, one of the things we tend to do is look, okay, what is the ROI of the top lineup? I mean, this is intense, 291.8. It must think like we really have that field down perfect. And, you know, we can't expect that much ROI. Let's go down to our 10th lineup, 259. I mean, this is really some aggressive ROIs. It really likes these teams. We just want to keep in mind that we can't expect those kind of ROIs when we actually, you know, flip the cards over. And even when we do, we're using SaberSim projections, so we expect SaberSim to grade us pretty well in what they do. But all of these are kind of bunched up. You just get a lot of Washington and a lot of Carolina. Let's build. If we go out to 30, do we get any other teams? In the 6 stacks, no. In the 5 stacks, no. 40 lineups. In our top 40, no one coming up. So we'll see what happens when we run this process again in the 10 minutes before lock. Here's something. Finally, we get to a Vegas lineup ranking 47th. But here's the thing. You're well within your rights to play this, right? I mean, even if it's saying jam Washington, jam Carolina, these are the best lineups, you know, look at the ROI here. I mean, this is still a strong ROI. And you could go down pretty far and still get, you know, close to it in the ROI scale. So, well, let's see if we simulated this again. Let's favorite this. And let's see if this lineup gets us over a 200% ROI, just to check for robustness across multiple sims in it. Now, we can't expect a 200 ROI, but let's see if it keeps coming up as a plus EV lineup if we run this simulation again. Comes up pretty close, 183, but ranks pretty low, 207. So let's see if we went to the top 50 in this sim. All Washington and Carolina. This one that we flagged for Vegas, it's putting into the top 50, but really it ranked 207 we just saw. So right now, if we were to play today, you know, take your pick between Washington and Carolina, and those are the lineups that are going to rank the best in SaberSim using our process right now. This is going to change, right? Carolina value is subject to change. Other values are subject to change as the sims get sharper, closer and closer to lock. And remember, if we ran Sheets' projections or Goldie's projections, we'd probably get a whole different set of lineups. So, you know, here's how we're going to do it. This is how I would do it right before lock. I would, you know, look in the top 10, pick my preferred stack, favorite it, load it up, and play. And that's kind of how I run NHL DFS. That's how I would do it for tonight's slate and how I will do it as we get closer to lock. And I hope you guys learned. Feel free to join us. We are always available in Discord. You can try us out for $10.99 for a week subscription. You get access to SaberSim. You get access to Sheets' projections, to Goldie's projections, premium videos. So there's a lot of content and a lot of help. So please feel free to ask any questions below or come join us in Discord. And good luck on tonight's slate.